My small business was audited by my billionaire ex-husband's company. Then he heard twins call me Mom. The air in my office seemed to crystallize as I stared at the letter bearing the Blackwood Financial Group logo. My hands trembled so badly I nearly dropped it. Mandatory compliance audit. Within 30 days. My carefully built world was about to collapse. 6 years of secrets. 6 years since I discovered Maxwell Blackwood's affair and fled Atlanta with nothing but my maiden name and the twins growing inside me. 6 years of raising daughters who had no idea their father was a billionaire who had betrayed their mother while she was pregnant. This can't be happening, I whispered, panic rising in my throat. If Maxwell discovered our daughters existed, he would use every resource at his disposal to take them from me. The man who cheated on his wife, who once said children were anchors that drag you down, would suddenly want custody of the heirs I'd kept hidden. I had 30 days before his auditors arrived. 30 days to prepare for the moment my ex-husband discovered I'd been raising his children in secret for 6 years. Have you ever had your past crash into your present at the worst possible moment? When the man who broke my heart and betrayed our marriage was suddenly about to audit my business, I knew my carefully constructed world was about to shatter. But what would happen when he discovered the twin daughters he never knew existed? Hey, my queens. Life has a way of bringing our deepest fears right to our doorstep, doesn't it? That moment when everything you've built, everything you've protected, suddenly stands on the edge of a cliff. I see you, the woman who walked away from toxicity to create something beautiful. The mother who would move mountains to protect her children. The professional who built her empire from the ground up with nothing but determination and grit. When that moment comes, and it will come, remember this. You are stronger than your worst day. You are wiser than your biggest mistake. And you have earned the right to stand in your power, even when the past comes knocking. The woman who survived is not the same woman who ran. Trust her. She knows what she's doing. I sank into my chair, memories flooding back unbidden. The whirlwind romance with the charismatic investment banker, whose family firm was a cornerstone of Atlanta's financial district. The lavish wedding at his family's estate outside the city. The gradual realization that in Maxwell's world, I was an accessory. Beautiful, accomplished, but ultimately expected to orbit his ambitions rather than pursue my own. The final betrayal had come when I discovered his affair with a colleague. Not just any affair, but one conducted with calculated precision, hidden behind late meetings and business trips while I battled morning sickness alone. I'd left without confrontation, without drama, simply packed what mattered and disappeared to Chicago, where my sister lived. I never told him about the pregnancy, never asked for money, never looked back, until this letter arrived, bearing his family company's name and the power to destroy everything I'd built. The phone on my desk rang, startling me from my thoughts. My assistant's voice came through the speaker. Ms. Winters, your 3 o'clock consultation is here. The lakefront renovation. I took a deep breath, tucking the letter into my desk drawer. Send them in, Vanessa. And could you bring in the portfolio for the Morrison project? I think Mrs. Abernathy might appreciate that aesthetic. Business as usual. I couldn't afford to fall apart. Not with twin daughters depending on me. Not with 15 employees whose livelihoods rested on my shoulders. Not with clients who trusted my vision to transform their spaces. Later that evening, I pulled into the driveway of my Evanston home, a modest but beautifully renovated craftsman that represented everything I valued. Warmth, authenticity, history thoughtfully preserved while making space for new beginnings. The front door flew open before I could reach it, and 2 identical faces peered out, their expressions brightening at the sight of me. Mom, you're late. Olivia called, the more outspoken of my daughters. We made dinner with Aunt Ellie, added Amelia, her quieter shadow. At almost 6, the twins were a perfect blend of their parents. My warm brown skin and curly hair, Maxwell's striking gray eyes and determined chin. They had no memory of their father, knew only that he lived far away and wasn't part of their lives. I'd been careful never to speak ill of him, even as I'd built a life that excluded him completely. You 2 cooked? I asked, hanging up my coat and kicking off my heels with a grateful sigh. Should I be worried? We helped, Amelia clarified seriously. Aunt Ellie did the stove parts. My younger sister appeared in the hallway, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Eleanor had been my rock through pregnancy, childbirth, and those exhausting early years of single motherhood. Now she lived 10 minutes away and remained an integral part of our family unit. They set the table all by themselves, Eleanor reported. And Olivia insisted on folding the napkins like they do at that restaurant you took them to for your birthday. Very fancy, I approved, following my daughters to the dining room where, indeed, the napkins had been folded into elaborate triangles. Over a simple meal of pasta and salad, I listened to the twins chatter about their day at kindergarten, Amelia's art project, Olivia's triumph during math centers. I pushed the audit letter from my mind, determined to be present for this precious time with my girls. Only after they were bathed, read to, and tucked into their beds did I allow the worry to resurface. In the kitchen, I poured a glass of wine and finally confided in Eleanor. An audit? After all this time? Eleanor frowned, taking the letter I handed her. This can't be coincidence. That's what I thought at first, I admitted. But Blackwood Financial handles audits for half the businesses in Atlanta. I've been flying under the radar, but my firm has grown. We've been featured in design magazines, won regional awards. It was probably just a matter of time before my name crossed someone's desk there. Do you think he knows? About the girls. I shook my head. How could he? I never told anyone in Atlanta I was pregnant. By the time I started showing, I was already in Chicago. And I've been careful. No social media presence that connects me to them, no public photos. But this audit is standard procedure, I finished firmly. Invasive and terrifying, but standard. They'll go through my books, verify my compliance with 1,000 regulations, and move on to torment some other small business owner. Eleanor didn't look convinced. And if Maxwell himself shows up? He won't, I said with more confidence than I felt. He's on the board now, not handling day-to-day operations. He'll send some junior accountant who won't even know who I am. But that night, as I lay awake staring at the ceiling, I couldn't shake the feeling that my carefully constructed world was about to collapse around me. 6 years of secrets and separation suddenly felt as fragile as a house of cards in a rising wind. The audit was scheduled for the following Monday. I spent the weekend preparing, organizing financial records, reviewing tax filings, gathering documentation of every business decision I'd made since founding Winter's Design Studio. I worked late into the night after the twins were asleep, fueled by determination and fear in equal measure. By Monday morning, I was exhausted but ready. I'd chosen my outfit with care, a tailored navy suit that projected confidence and professionalism without drawing attention to the curves that had once captivated Maxwell Blackwood. My hair was pulled back in a sleek chignon, my makeup subtle but flawless, armor all of it. The auditor from Blackwood Financial is here, Vanessa announced over the intercom at precisely 9 a.m. I straightened my spine, took a deep breath, and opened my office door with a professional smile fixed firmly in place. The smile froze as I found myself face to face not with some anonymous accountant, but with Darius Blackwood, Maxwell's younger brother and the company's chief financial officer. "Hello, Josie," he said quietly, using the nickname only family had ever called me. "It's been a long time." Darius had aged well in the 6 years since I'd last seen him. Still lean and athletic, his dark skin a shade deeper than I remembered, perhaps from the sailing he'd always loved. His expression was unreadable as he studied me with the same intensity that all the Blackwood men seemed to possess. "Darius," I managed, fighting to keep my voice steady. "This is unexpected. I was told Blackwood was sending an auditor." "They sent the best," he replied with a hint of the wry humor I remembered. "May I come in?" I stepped aside, gesturing him into my office while my mind raced. Darius had always been the most approachable of the Blackwood clan, less driven by the family's ruthless ambition, more guided by his own moral compass. "We'd been friends once, before everything fell apart." "Your firm has done well," he observed, glancing around at the awards displayed on my walls, the portfolio books showcasing my most prestigious projects. I've seen your work featured in Architectural Digest. That lakefront renovation was particularly impressive. Thank you, I said stiffly, taking my seat behind the desk. But I doubt you came all this way to discuss my design aesthetic. Shall we get to the audit? Darius sat across from me, setting his briefcase on the floor beside him. Always direct. Some things don't change. He leaned forward slightly. Before we start, I think we should address the elephant in the room. My heart stuttered. Which is? The fact that you disappeared 6 years ago without a word, divorced my brother in absentia, and have been deliberately avoiding any contact with the Blackwood family ever since. His tone remained conversational, but his eyes were intent on my face. And now here I am in your office, about to go through your financial records with a fine-tooth comb. It's awkward, to say the least. Is that why you're here instead of a regular auditor? To satisfy your curiosity about why I left. I'm here because when your firm's name came up in our system, I wanted to make sure you were treated fairly. Darius held up a hand when I started to protest. Blackwood Financial prides itself on impartiality, but we both know my brother can be vindictive when he feels wronged. The understatement almost made me laugh. Maxwell Blackwood didn't just hold grudges. He nurtured them like precious orchids, feeding them with resentment until they bloomed into spectacular retribution. Does he know you're here? I asked the question I'd been dreading. No, Darius said simply. As far as Maxwell is concerned, you're just another audit on the schedule. I made sure of that. Relief washed through me, followed immediately by suspicion. Why would you do that? Darius was quiet for a moment, studying me with those perceptive eyes that had always seen too much. Because whatever happened between you and Max, you didn't deserve to be blindsided. And because I always thought you had good reasons for leaving the way you did. The unexpected kindness threatened to crack my carefully maintained composure. I looked down at my desk, gathering myself before meeting his gaze again. Thank you, I said quietly. But that doesn't change the fact that my business is being audited. I've prepared everything you should need. I gestured to the neatly organized files on my desk. I have nothing to hide, Darius. My firm operates with complete transparency and integrity. I never doubted that, he said, reaching for the first folder. Let's get started, shall we? Sisters, have you ever had to rebuild your life from scratch? Drop a heart in the comments if you found the strength to start over. I first met Maxwell Blackwood at a charity gala in Atlanta 7 years ago. I was 28, newly established as a promising interior designer after years of working under more established names. The event was at the High Museum of Art, and I was there representing my employer, whose firm had donated the design services for the renovation of the museum's East Wing. Maxwell stood out even in that crowd of Atlanta's elite, tall, impeccably dressed in a tuxedo that emphasized his broad shoulders, with that distinctive Blackwood confidence that bordered on arrogance. He was 34 and already a partner in his family's financial firm, with a reputation for brilliant investment strategies and ruthless business tactics. You're staring at the most eligible bachelor in Atlanta, my colleague had whispered, following my gaze. Maxwell Blackwood. Old money, new ambition, and completely out of our league. I'd laughed and turned away, uninterested in the city's social hierarchies. But later, as I examined a contemporary sculpture, a deep voice beside me said, "It looks like a child's attempt at a paper airplane, doesn't it?" I turned to find Maxwell Blackwood studying the artwork with a skeptical expression. Up close, his eyes were even more striking, the color of storm clouds, framed by dark lashes. "I think it's meant to evoke the fragility of human connection," I replied, surprising myself with my boldness. "The way we reach for each other but never quite connect." He'd looked at me then, really looked, with an intensity that made my skin warm. "Interesting interpretation. And you are Josephine Winters. I work with Harrington Design." Maxwell Blackwood. He extended his hand, and when I took it, he held on a beat longer than necessary. "And what do you do at Harrington, Josephine Winters?" "I transform spaces," I said simply. I help people see the potential in what already exists. His smile had changed then, warming from polite interest to genuine curiosity. I'd like to hear more about that. Perhaps over dinner. That was the beginning. Dinner led to more dinners, to weekends exploring Atlanta's hidden corners, to long conversations about art and design and our different views of the world. Maxwell was brilliant, driven, and surprisingly thoughtful in those early days. He sent flowers to my tiny apartment, remembered details from our conversations, made me feel seen in a way I never had before. 3 months after we met, he took me to his family's estate outside the city, a sprawling antebellum mansion that had been in the Blackwood family for generations. "This place is magnificent," I'd said, running my hand along the carved banister of the main staircase. "But it feels cold," Maxwell supplied. "Impersonal? That's what happens when a house is treated as a monument rather than a home." I'd looked at him in surprise. "Exactly. It needs warmth, life, a sense that people actually live here rather than just occupy it. Perhaps you could help with that," he'd suggested, pulling me close. "I've been thinking of buying my own place, something I could make mine, not just another Blackwood heirloom." "I'd love to help," I'd said, meaning it. The idea of creating a space that reflected Maxwell, the man I was rapidly falling for, not the Blackwood heir, was exciting. "Good," he'd murmured against my hair, "because I think you might be exactly what I've been looking for." 2 weeks later, he proposed. 6 months after that, we were married in a lavish ceremony at the very estate I'd found so cold. I tried to infuse warmth into the celebration, personal touches, meaningful details, but the Blackwood family traditions prevailed. It was a society wedding, designed to impress rather than express. Still, I was happy, deliriously, foolishly happy. I believed I'd found a partner who valued me for my mind, my talent, my perspective. Someone who saw me as an equal, not an accessory. The first year of marriage seemed to confirm that belief. We bought a penthouse in Midtown, and Maxwell gave me free rein to design it. I left Harrington Design to focus on our home and on establishing my own client base among Atlanta's elite. Maxwell's family connections opened doors that might have remained closed to me otherwise, and I was grateful for the opportunity to prove myself. But gradually, almost imperceptibly, things began to change. Maxwell's work hours grew longer. Family obligations took precedence over our plans. My design projects were expected to accommodate his schedule, his preferences, his family's expectations. "It's just how things work in our world, Josie," he'd say when I expressed frustration. "The Blackwood name opens doors, but it comes with responsibilities." I understood responsibility. What I couldn't accept was the gradual erosion of my identity, the subtle expectation that I would mold myself to fit the Blackwood mold rather than carve my own path alongside Maxwell's. The morning passed in a blur of financial statements, tax records, and pointed questions. Darius was thorough but fair, his approach more collaborative than confrontational. By lunchtime, we had established a rhythm that felt almost comfortable, an echo of the easy rapport we'd once shared as in-laws who genuinely liked each other. "We should break for lunch," Darius suggested, checking his watch. "There's a cafe around the corner I noticed on my way in." I hesitated. Sharing a meal felt too personal, too much like the friendship we'd once had. "I usually eat at my desk. 1 hour away from this office won't derail the audit," he countered. "And I think we could both use the break." Before I could respond, my cell phone rang, the special ringtone I'd assigned to the twins' school. My heart jumped as I grabbed the phone. "This is Josephine Winters," I answered, already reaching for my purse. "Ms. Winters, this is Nurse Brenda at Lakeside Elementary. I'm calling about Amelia. She had a fall during recess and may have sprained her wrist. She's not in serious pain, but we think she should be seen by a doctor to rule out a fracture." "I'll be right there," I said, already on my feet. "Tell her mom's coming." I ended the call and looked at Darius, professional decorum momentarily forgotten in my concern. "I have to go. My daughter's hurt at school." If Darius was surprised by the mention of a child, he didn't show it. "Of course, we can reschedule the rest of the audit." "No," I said quickly, calculating how much time I would need. I should be back in a couple of hours. We can continue then. Josephine, Darius said gently, your child needs you. The audit can wait until tomorrow. I paused, struck by his understanding. Thank you. I'll call the office when I know more. As I hurried out, gathering my coat and purse, I was too preoccupied to notice the photograph that had fallen from my wallet. A recent school picture of the twins, their identical smiles beaming up from the carpet beside Darius's chair. The pediatric urgent care was mercifully quiet for a Monday afternoon. Amelia sat on my lap in the examination room, her small face brave despite the pain in her wrist. Olivia, who had insisted on coming along when I picked them up from school, sat in the chair beside us, holding her sister's good hand. It's definitely not broken, the doctor announced, returning with the X-ray results. A mild sprain. We'll wrap it and she'll need to rest it for a few days, but children heal quickly at this age. See? I told you it wasn't broken, Olivia said to her twin. Remember when Tyler broke his arm at the playground? His whole arm turned purple. I'm glad mine's not purple, Amelia said softly. Will I still be able to draw, Mom? In a few days, sweetheart, I promised, pressing a kiss to her forehead. For now, you'll need to give that wrist a rest. Once Amelia's wrist was wrapped and care instructions provided, I faced a dilemma. It was nearly 3 o'clock, too late to return the girls to school, but I still needed to complete the audit with Darius. How would you two feel about coming to Mom's office for a little while? I asked as we walked to the car. You can have your snacks in the conference room and draw or read quietly while I finish some important work. Is it the work with the man in the nice suit? Olivia asked, always observant. The one who was in your office this morning? Yes, that's Mr. Blackwood. He's an old friend who's helping with some business paperwork. The half-truth tasted bitter, but I wasn't ready to explain the complexities of their past to my daughters. I like his smile, Amelia offered unexpectedly. He looks kind. I helped the girls into their booster seats, wondering when Amelia had glimpsed Darius smiling. Perhaps when he'd arrived that morning and passed through the reception area. Remember, you'll need to use your very best indoor voices at the office. I reminded them as we drove. This is a very important meeting for Mom's business. We'll be super quiet, Olivia promised. Like ninjas. Friendly ninjas, Amelia amended, making me smile despite my stress. When we arrived at Winter's design studio, I was relieved to see Darius's rental car still in the parking lot. I'd texted from the doctor's office that I was returning with my daughters, and he'd responded that he would wait. Remember, best behavior, I whispered as we entered through the back door that led directly to the small kitchen area. I quickly set the girls up in the adjacent conference room with their snacks, coloring books, and strict instructions to stay put unless they needed me urgently. Taking a deep breath, I straightened my slightly rumpled suit and made my way to my office, where Darius was reviewing documents at my desk. I'm so sorry about the interruption, I said, closing the door behind me. Thank you for your patience. Darius looked up, his expression unreadable. How is your daughter? Just a sprain, thankfully. She'll be fine in a few days. He nodded, then reached into his pocket and withdrew a small photograph, placing it carefully on the desk between us. This fell from your wallet when you left. I froze, staring at the school portrait of my twins. Their gray eyes, Maxwell's eyes, seemed to stare back at me accusingly. They're beautiful, Darius said quietly. How old are they? For a wild moment, I considered lying, claiming they were my sister's children, or that I'd adopted them after leaving Atlanta. But the resemblance was too strong, the timing too obvious. They'll be 6 next month, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Darius did the math instantly, his eyes widening slightly. You were pregnant when you left. It wasn't a question, but I nodded anyway, sinking into the chair across from him. I found out the day before I discovered Maxwell's affair. And you never told him? No. Why? Darius asked, his voice carefully neutral. He had a right to know he had children. I felt a flash of anger cut through my fear. Did he? The same man who betrayed our marriage vows while I was carrying his children? The same man who told me repeatedly that children would interfere with his 5-year plan for making partner. I leaned forward, years of pent-up emotion breaking through my careful facade. The same man who, when his college friend announced his wife's pregnancy, said, and I quote, "There goes his career. Kids are anchors that drag you down when you're trying to rise." Darius winced. Max has always been focused on success. Obsessed is the word you're looking for, I corrected. I loved him, Darius. God help me, I loved him with everything I had. But when I found those hotel receipts, when I saw the text messages, I realized I would never be his priority. And I refused to raise children who would grow up feeling like inconveniences in their father's grand plan. So you left without a word. I left with a divorce petition that cited his infidelity in explicit detail, I countered. He chose not to contest it, never tried to find me, never questioned why I wanted nothing from him, no alimony, no property settlement. Nothing except my freedom. Darius was quiet for a long moment, his fingers resting lightly on the twins' photograph. They look like him, he said finally. Around the eyes. Yes, I acknowledged softly. They do. Do they know about him? They know they have a father who lives far away. That's all. I met his gaze directly. I've never spoken ill of Maxwell to them. When they're older, if they ask questions, I'll answer honestly. But they're too young now to understand the complexities of adult relationships. Darius nodded slowly, then asked the question I'd been dreading. What happens now? Before I could answer, the conference room door opened, and 2 small voices carried down the hallway, growing louder as they approached my office. But Mom said we could ask if we needed something important, Olivia was saying. Getting more juice isn't important, Amelia replied, her softer voice still clearly audible. It is if you're thirsty, Olivia insisted as they reached my office door, which had been left slightly ajar. The twins appeared in the doorway, freezing when they saw I wasn't alone. My heart stopped as Darius turned to look at his nieces for the first time. The resemblance was even more striking in person. Though they had my warm brown complexion and curly hair, their facial structure, the high cheekbones, the straight nose, the determined chin, was pure Blackwood. And those eyes, the distinctive gray that had been passed down through generations of the family, were unmistakable. Hello, Darius said gently, recovering first. You must be Josephine's daughters. Olivia, never shy, stepped forward. I'm Olivia Winters. This is my sister Amelia. She hurt her wrist at school today. I'm sorry to hear that, Darius replied, his voice warm. Is it feeling any better now? Amelia nodded, studying him with curious eyes. Are you Mom's friend? Darius glanced at me, and I had risen from my chair, my face pale. Yes, he said after a moment. An old friend. My name is Darius. Girls, I managed, finding my voice. I thought you were going to stay in the conference room until I came to get you. We ran out of juice, Olivia explained, holding up an empty juice box. And Amelia's wrist was hurting again. I moved to my daughter's side immediately. Do you need another pain reliever, sweetheart? The doctor said we could give you one if the first wore off. Amelia shook her head. It's not too bad. I just wanted you. The simple statement pierced my heart. I knelt to hug her carefully, avoiding the injured wrist. I'm right here. Why don't you and Olivia go back to the conference room? And I'll bring some more juice in just a minute. Can we meet your friend first? Olivia asked, her eyes fixed on Darius with undisguised curiosity. You never have friends visit at the office. I hesitated, looking up at Darius, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. Mr. Blackwood is here on business, I explained, choosing my words carefully. He's helping me with some important paperwork for the company. Blackwood, Amelia repeated, her brow furrowing. That's a pretty name. Thank you, Darius said with a smile. It's a family name. Olivia tilted her head, studying him with the directness only children can manage. You have eyes like ours. The observation hung in the air, innocent yet devastating in its accuracy. I felt the room tilt slightly, my carefully constructed world shifting on its axis. Many people have gray eyes, I said quickly, rising to my feet. Now, let's get you both back to the conference room with fresh juice boxes, and I'll finish my meeting with Mr. Blackwood. It was nice to meet you both, Darius said, his voice remarkably steady despite the emotion I could see in his eyes. Perhaps we'll see each other again sometime. I hope so, Olivia replied cheerfully. Mom doesn't have many friends. Olivia, I admonished gently, guiding my daughters toward the door. That's not appropriate. But it's true, Olivia insisted. You only ever see clients and Aunt Ellie. And Ms. Vanessa, Amelia added helpfully. And now Mr. Blackwood, Olivia concluded triumphantly. So that's good. I managed a strained smile. I'll be right back, I said to Darius, ushering the twins out and closing the door behind us. In the conference room, I quickly settled the girls with fresh juice boxes and a gentle reminder to stay put this time. I need just a little more time with Mr. Blackwood, and then we'll go home. Can you be my good helpers for 20 more minutes? Yes, Mom, they chorused, already returning to their coloring books. I took a moment in the hallway to compose myself before returning to my office. The situation was spiraling beyond my control. Darius had seen the twins, had recognized them instantly as Blackwoods. There was no going back from this moment. When I re-entered my office, Darius was standing by the window, his back to the door, shoulders tense beneath his impeccable suit. They're remarkable, he said without turning around. Bright, articulate, confident. You've done an amazing job with them, Josie. Thank you, I said quietly, closing the door. Darius, they're Maxwell's children, he interrupted, finally turning to face me. My brother's daughters. My nieces. I nodded, unable to deny the obvious truth. Yes, and he has no idea they exist. No. Darius ran a hand over his face, a gesture so reminiscent of his brother that I felt a pang of old grief. This changes everything. Tag a sister who helped you through your darkest times. Where would we be without the women who hold us up when we can't stand alone? It doesn't have to, I said quickly. The girls are happy, Darius. They're thriving. They don't need to be dragged into the Blackwood family drama. They're heirs to one of the largest financial firms in the Southeast, Darius pointed out. They have grandparents, uncles, cousins who don't know they exist. A father who never wanted them. I cut in, my voice sharp with protective instinct. Who would see them as complications in his perfect life? You don't know that, Darius argued. People change. Circumstances change. Maxwell is different now. I gave a bitter laugh. Different how? More ambitious? More ruthless? More dedicated to the Blackwood legacy? He's a father, Darius said quietly. He has a 3-year-old son. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. I sank into my chair, trying to process this new information. Maxwell had another child, a son, the Blackwood heir he'd always wanted. He remarried? I asked, hating the tremor in my voice. Darius nodded. 4 years ago. Victoria comes from a banking family in Virginia. Very suitable. He added with a hint of the old irony I remembered. Their son, James, is the apple of Maxwell's eye. He's softer with him than I expected. More patient. Good for him, I said, fighting to keep my voice neutral. I'm glad he found what he wanted. Josie, Darius said gently, coming to sit across from me. I understand why you left. I understand why you kept the girls a secret. But now that I know, I can't unknow. They're my family too. What are you going to do? I asked, the question that had been hovering between us since the twins appeared in my doorway. Darius was quiet for a long moment, his expression troubled. I don't know yet, he admitted finally. But I can't lie to my brother about something this important. Fear clutched at my heart. He'll try to take them from me, I whispered. You know he will. Maxwell doesn't lose, doesn't share. If he decides he wants them in his life, He'll use every resource at his disposal to get his way. Or maybe he'll respect the life you've built, Darius suggested, though he didn't sound entirely convinced. Maybe he'll find a way to be part of their lives without disrupting everything. Do you really believe that? I challenged. This is Maxwell we're talking about. The man who sued his own cousin over a disputed inheritance. The man who systematically destroyed his former mentor's reputation when the old man dared to criticize his investment strategy. Darius couldn't deny the truth of my words. Maxwell Blackwood was not known for compromise or restraint when he felt entitled to something. Give me some time, he said finally. Let me think about how to handle this. I won't say anything to Maxwell immediately. How much time? I pressed. A week, maybe 2. He held up a hand when I started to protest. That's the best I can offer, Josie. These are his children. He has a right to know they exist. I felt tears threatening and blinked them back fiercely. And what about their rights? Their right to stability, to security, to a life free from power struggles and manipulation. Who protects those? You do, Darius said simply. You always have. And maybe I can help. Before I could respond, my office phone rang. Vanessa reminding me of a client call scheduled for 4 o'clock. The real world intruding on this impossible moment. I need to take this, I said, grateful for the interruption. And you need to finish the audit. Darius nodded, recognizing my retreat into professionalism for the defense mechanism it was. We'll continue tomorrow, he said, gathering his papers. Same time. Yes, I agreed, already reaching for the phone. Tomorrow. As Darius left, closing the door quietly behind him, I took a deep breath and answered the call, forcing my voice into its professional cadence. But inside, my mind was racing, calculating options, planning contingencies. I had 1 week, 2 at most, before Maxwell Blackwood discovered he had twin daughters. And when that happened, the careful life I'd built would never be the same. That night, after the twins were asleep, I sat at my kitchen table with Eleanor, a bottle of wine between us and the weight of the day's revelations hanging heavy in the air. He recognized them immediately, I said, staring into my glass. One look, and he knew they were Blackwoods. Of course he did, Eleanor replied. They have the family eyes, and that stubborn chin, pure Maxwell. What am I going to do, Ellie? My voice cracked slightly. Darius says he'll give me a week or 2, but then he's telling Maxwell. And when that happens, you could run again, Eleanor suggested, though she didn't sound convinced. Take the girls and start over somewhere new. Europe, maybe, or Canada. I shook my head. I can't do that to them. They have friends here, school, stability. And running would only prove I have something to hide. When Maxwell finds us, it would make me look guilty in any custody dispute. You think it will come to that? I don't know, I admitted. Darius says Maxwell has changed. That he's a devoted father to his son. I took a sip of wine, the bitterness matching my mood. Maybe he has. Or maybe he just sees the boy as his legacy. The future of Blackwood Financial. What does your lawyer say? Eleanor asked practically. That I have a strong case for maintaining primary custody. I've been their only parent for nearly 6 years. They're thriving. No judge would completely upend their lives. I sighed. But Maxwell has resources I can't match. He could drag this out for years, drain me financially, make my life, our lives, a living hell. Unless you reach some kind of agreement, Eleanor pointed out. Shared holidays, summer visits. Many divorced parents manage it. This isn't a normal divorce situation, Ellie. I kept his children from him. In his mind, that's an unforgivable betrayal. I ran a hand through my hair, loosening it from its tight chignon. And the worst part is I can't even say I regret it. Leaving was the right decision. Protecting the girls from his world, from becoming pawns in his games, that was right too. Then stand by that decision, Eleanor said firmly. You did what any good mother would do. You put your children first. If Maxwell Blackwood can't understand that, it only proves you were right about him all along. I wished I could share my sister's certainty. But as I lay awake that night, memories of my marriage played through my mind like scenes from a distant film. Maxwell's ambition, his charm, his absolute conviction that the world should bend to his will. The way he'd pursued me when we first met, determined to win me despite my initial resistance. The intensity of his focus when he wanted something. And now that focus would be turning toward Olivia and Amelia. The thought sent a chill through me that had nothing to do with the cool Chicago night. The next morning, I dropped the twins at school with extra tight hugs and a promise to pick them up early for ice cream after their checkup with the pediatrician. Amelia's wrist was already improving, but I'd scheduled a follow-up appointment to be safe. At the office, I found Darius waiting in the reception area, his expression grave. "We need to talk," he said without preamble. Privately, in my office with the door firmly closed, he handed me his tablet. On the screen was an email from Maxwell Blackwood himself, the timestamp showing it had been sent at 6:17 that morning. "Darius, Jennifer tells me you're personally handling an audit for a design firm in Chicago, Winters Design Studio. Isn't that Josephine's maiden name? Is this the same Josephine who was once married to me? Or just a coincidence? If it is her, I want a full report when you return. Not just on the audit, but on her. It's been 6 years since she disappeared. I'm curious to know what she's been doing with herself." Maxwell. I felt the blood drain from my face. How did he find out? "I don't know," Darius admitted. "Someone at the office must have mentioned I was in Chicago for an audit. He probably saw your firm's name on the schedule." "What are you going to tell him?" Darius took the tablet back, his expression troubled. "I don't know yet, but this changes our timeline. He's already asking questions." I stood, pacing the length of my office. "I need to talk to my lawyer. Today. Now." "That's probably wise," Darius agreed. "For what it's worth, I think you should be the one to tell him about the twins. Before he finds out some other way." "And say what?" "Hello, Maxwell, remember me? The wife you cheated on. Surprise, you have 5-year-old twin daughters you never knew about." I shook my head. "There's no good way to have that conversation." "No," Darius acknowledged. "But some ways are less bad than others. And if you take control of the narrative, you might be able to set the terms of engagement." I stopped pacing, struck by the wisdom in his words. If Maxwell found out about the twins from someone else, from Darius, from a private investigator, from a chance encounter, his reaction would be unpredictable, potentially explosive. But if I approached him first on my terms, "I need to think," I said finally, "and I need to talk to my lawyer." "Of course." Darius glanced at his watch. "I should finish the audit today. Your books are in excellent order, by the way. I'll have the official report ready by tomorrow." "And then you go back to Atlanta," I said, the implication clear. Back to Maxwell. Back to questions I wasn't ready to answer. "Yes." Darius hesitated. "Josie, whatever you decide, I want you to know I'm on your side. Not against Maxwell, but for the twins. For what's best for them." The sincerity in his voice touched me. "Thank you," I said softly. "That means more than you know." After Darius left, I called my lawyer, Rebecca Chen, and scheduled an emergency consultation for that afternoon. Then I called Eleanor. "I need you to pick up the girls from their doctor's appointment," I explained. "I have to meet with Rebecca." "Of course," Eleanor agreed immediately. "Is everything okay?" "No," I admitted. "Maxwell knows I'm in Chicago. He doesn't know about the twins yet, but it's only a matter of time." "What are you going to do?" I took a deep breath. "I'm going to face him, on my terms, before he can blindside me." The silence on the other end of the line spoke volumes. "Are you sure that's wise?" Eleanor finally asked. "No," I said honestly, "but I'm out of options. And I'm done running." Rebecca's office was in a sleek downtown high-rise, with views of Lake Michigan that would have been breathtaking if I'd been in any state to appreciate them. She listened intently as I explained the situation, her expression growing more concerned with each new detail. "Let me make sure I understand," she said when I finished. "Your ex-husband's company is auditing your firm. His brother, your former brother-in-law, is conducting the audit personally. He's discovered the existence of your twin daughters, who are biologically your ex-husband's children, though he has never known about them. And now your ex-husband is asking questions about you, though he doesn't yet know about the children. That's the situation, I confirmed. Rebecca leaned back in her chair, fingers steepled beneath her chin. Legally, you're in a complex position. You never deliberately concealed the children from the court during your divorce. The pregnancy wasn't known to you at that time. You've never sought child support, which means you haven't committed fraud in that regard. However, deliberately withholding the existence of children from their biological father for nearly 6 years, that's going to be problematic if this ends up in court. I know, I said quietly, but I had good reasons. I believe you, Rebecca assured me, and a good family court judge would take those reasons into consideration. Your ex-husband's infidelity, his expressed negative views on parenthood, your concerns about the children's emotional well-being, these are all valid factors, but they don't negate his parental rights. So what do I do? If you're determined to approach him first, we need to prepare carefully. Document everything, your reasons for leaving, your life with the twins, their routines, their stability. We'll draft a proposed custody and visitation agreement that acknowledges his rights while prioritizing the girls' well-being and minimizing disruption to their lives. And if he rejects that, if he demands full custody or tries to take them to Atlanta, Rebecca's expression was grave. Then we fight. But Josephine, you need to be prepared for the possibility that some form of shared custody may be inevitable. The courts generally believe that children benefit from relationships with both parents, absent abuse or neglect. I nodded, the reality of the situation settling over me like a heavy cloak. I understand. How quickly can we prepare everything? I'll have my team work on it immediately. We can have documents ready by tomorrow afternoon. Rebecca hesitated. When do you plan to contact him? As soon as possible, I said. Before he finds out some other way. Do you want me present for that conversation? I considered the offer. Having legal representation would send a message that I was prepared, protected, unwilling to be intimidated. But it would also set an adversarial tone from the beginning. No, I decided. This first conversation needs to be between Maxwell and me. But I want everything in place before I make that call. Rebecca nodded. I'll have the documents ready tomorrow. And Josephine, try to remember that this isn't just about you and your ex-husband. It's about what's best for your daughters. They're all I think about, I said softly. Everything I've done. Leaving Atlanta, building my business, creating our home here. It's all been for them. Then trust that, Rebecca advised. Trust your instincts as their mother. And let's make sure the legal groundwork supports those instincts. When I arrived home that evening, the house was filled with the scent of baking cookies and the sound of children's laughter. I found Eleanor in the kitchen with the twins, all three dusted with flour, decorating sugar cookies with brightly colored icing. Mom, Olivia spotted me first. We're making cookies for Mr. Blackwood. Aunt Ellie said it was a good idea because he was nice about your audit. I shot my sister a questioning look. She shrugged. They wanted to do something nice. I figured cookies were harmless. Look, I made this one special, Amelia said, holding up a cookie decorated with a wobbly blue sailboat. Aunt Ellie said he likes sailing. My heart constricted at the innocent gesture. My daughters unknowingly baking cookies for their uncle, using information about him that Eleanor remembered from our Atlanta days. That's very thoughtful, I managed, setting down my purse. I'm sure Mr. Blackwood will appreciate it. Can we give them to him tomorrow? Olivia asked eagerly. Before he goes back to Atlanta? I hesitated. We'll see, sweetheart. He might be very busy. But they're thank you cookies, Amelia insisted, her expression serious. Mom, you always say thank yous are important. They are, I agreed, unable to argue with my own teachings. Tell you what, I'll take them to my office tomorrow, and if Mr. Blackwood has time to stop by, he can have them then. This compromise satisfied the twins, who returned to their decorating with renewed enthusiasm. I caught Eleanor's eye and tilted my head toward the living room. She nodded, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Girls, keep working on those cookies. Mom and I need to talk about boring grown-up stuff for a minute. In the living room, safely out of earshot, Eleanor turned to me expectantly. What did Rebecca say? That I need to be prepared for shared custody, I said bluntly. That Maxwell has rights, regardless of my reasons for keeping the twins from him. Eleanor's face fell. That's what I was afraid of. So what's the plan? I'm going to call him. Tomorrow, after I have the legal documents from Rebecca. I'm going to tell him about the twins myself, before he finds out some other way. And then, I sank onto the sofa, suddenly exhausted. I don't know, Ellie. I've spent 6 years building a life without Maxwell Blackwood. I've raised our daughters to be strong, confident, happy. And now I have to prepare them for the possibility that their father, a stranger to them, might suddenly want to be part of their lives, might want to take them to Atlanta, introduce them to a whole family they've never known, integrate them into a world I deliberately left behind. I ran my hands over my face, the weight of it all pressing down on me. How do I prepare them for that? Eleanor sat beside me, her hand warm on my shoulder. The same way you've prepared them for everything else, with honesty, love, and your unwavering support. Josie, those girls are resilient because you've made them that way. They're secure in your love. That won't change no matter what Maxwell does. But what if he tries to turn them against me? What if he paints me as the villain who kept them from him? Then you trust that the foundation you've built is strong enough to withstand it, Eleanor said firmly. And you remember that you're not alone in this. I'm here. Your friends are here. Your employees who respect and admire you are here. You've built a community, Josie, not just a business. I leaned into my sister's embrace, drawing strength from her certainty. When did you get so wise? Watching you, she said simply. Watching you rebuild your life from scratch on your own terms. Whatever happens with Maxwell, remember who you are now. Not the woman who left Atlanta in the middle of the night, but the woman who created Winter's design studio, who raised 2 amazing daughters, who found her voice and her power. I nodded, straightening my shoulders. You're right. I need to focus on what I can control, how I approach this, how I prepare the girls, how I protect what matters most. Exactly. Eleanor squeezed my hand. Now, let's go help our budding artists finish those cookies. Tomorrow will take care of itself. But as I lay in bed that night, sleep eluding me once again, I couldn't help wondering what Maxwell's reaction would be. Would he be angry, hurt, indifferent? Would he see the twins as an inconvenience? Or would he embrace fatherhood as Darius suggested he had with his son? And most terrifying of all, would he see them as Blackwood's first and foremost, heirs to be molded in the family tradition rather than individuals with their own dreams and needs? The next morning dawned clear and cold, a perfect Chicago autumn day. I dressed with particular care. A deep burgundy suit that I'd worn to my first major client presentation after founding Winter's design studio. It had brought me luck then. I hoped it would again today. The twins were unusually subdued at breakfast, perhaps sensing my tension despite my efforts to appear normal. Mom, are you okay? Olivia asked as I packed their lunch boxes. You keep stirring your coffee but not drinking it. I smiled, caught by my observant daughter. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just thinking about a big meeting today. With Mr. Blackwood? Amelia asked, carefully placing her decorated cookies in a small container. For the audit? Yes, I said, deciding that was close enough to the truth. The audit is finishing today. And then everything will be okay with your business? Olivia pressed. I looked at my daughters, so young, yet so attuned to the undercurrents of adult concern. Yes, I promised. Everything will be okay. Whether I believed that or not was another matter entirely. At the office, I found Darius waiting with the completed audit report. Everything's in order, he said, handing me the folder. Your firm is in excellent financial health, fully compliant with all regulations. The official report will be filed today. Thank you, I said, taking the folder without opening it. The audit, which had seemed so threatening just days ago, now felt like the least of my concerns. Darius, I've decided to call Maxwell today, to tell him about the twins myself. He nodded, relief evident in his expression. I think that's wise. Would you like me to be there? Not physically present, but perhaps on the line. I considered the offer. Having Darius there might help moderate Maxwell's reaction, provide a buffer between us. But this conversation needed to happen between the two of us alone. No, I said finally, but thank you for offering. This is something I need to do myself. I understand. Darius hesitated. Josie, I know my brother. He'll be shocked, probably angry at first. But he's not the same man you left 6 years ago. Fatherhood has softened some of his sharper edges. I hope you're right, I said, not entirely convinced. Oh, before you go, the twins made you thank you cookies. I handed him the container Amelia had carefully packed that morning. They were quite insistent that you receive them. Darius looked genuinely touched as he opened the container to find the assortment of decorated cookies, including Amelia's blue sailboat. They remembered I sail? I mentioned it, I admitted. They wanted to make something special. Please thank them for me, he said, his voice slightly rough. And Josie, whatever happens with Maxwell, I hope you'll allow me to know my nieces, to be part of their lives in some small way. The request, so simply stated, caught me off guard. In all my worry about Maxwell, I hadn't considered the broader Blackwood family, the grandparents, the cousins, and Darius himself. People who might genuinely care for my daughters, who might enrich their lives rather than complicate them. I'd like that, I said, surprising myself with the truth of it. The girls could use more family in their lives, especially family who likes sailing and appreciates homemade cookies. Darius smiled, the expression warming his usually serious face. I'll be in Chicago again next month for a conference. Perhaps I could visit then? Meet them properly? I'd like that, I repeated, finding I meant it. Good luck with Maxwell when you return to Atlanta. I have a feeling you'll need it. After Darius left, I closed my office door and stared at my phone. It was time. Rebecca had emailed the legal documents that morning, a proposed custody agreement, a detailed account of the twins' lives and routines, a statement explaining my reasons for leaving without disclosing the pregnancy. Everything I needed to approach this conversation from a position of preparation rather than defense. I still had Maxwell's number memorized, though I deleted it from my contacts years ago. Some things, it seemed, the mind refused to let go. Before I could second-guess myself, I dialed. The phone rang 3 times before he answered. Maxwell Blackwood. His voice, so familiar even after all these years, sent a jolt through me. Maxwell, I said, keeping my voice steady. It's Josephine. The silence that followed seemed to stretch for an eternity. When he finally spoke, his tone was controlled, revealing nothing. Josephine, this is unexpected. I understand Blackwood Financial is auditing my firm, I said, deciding to start on neutral ground. Yes, he replied cautiously. Standard procedure for businesses in your sector. Though I admit I was surprised to discover you were operating a design studio in Chicago. You've done well for yourself, from what I hear. I have, I acknowledged. But that's not why I'm calling. I assumed as much. Pause. Why are you calling, Josephine? It's been 6 years without a word. I took a deep breath. There's something you need to know. Something I should have told you long ago. I'm listening. His tone sharpened, the businessman sensing important information about to be disclosed. When I left Atlanta, when I filed for divorce, I was pregnant. The words hung in the air between us, irrevocable now that they'd been spoken. With twins. Your daughters. The silence that followed was absolute. I could hear my own heartbeat, thundering in my ears as I waited for his response. My daughters, he repeated finally, his voice unnaturally calm. You've kept my children from me for 6 years. Yes. Why? The single word contained a universe of emotion. Anger, confusion, hurt. Because I found out I was pregnant the day before I discovered your affair, I said, the old pain surfacing despite my best efforts. Because you had made it abundantly clear that children weren't part of your 5-year plan. Because I couldn't bear the thought of raising daughters who would always come second to your ambitions. You had no right. I had every right to protect my children. I interrupted, my voice stronger now. To ensure they grew up feeling wanted, valued, loved unconditionally. Can you honestly tell me you would have welcomed the news of my pregnancy? That you wouldn't have seen it as an inconvenience, a complication in your carefully ordered life? His silence was answer enough. The girls are 5, almost 6. I continued, softening my tone. They're healthy, happy, thriving. They know they have a father who lives far away. I've never spoken ill of you to them. I've been waiting until they were old enough to understand before explaining the complexities of our situation. Their names? He asked, his voice strangely rough.